traveling with a surgeon from Dallas, and it was a particularly slow day at the clinic, and he wasn't feeling challenged, and he said, "Why don't we do some dentistry?" I wasn't feeling particularly great that day, and then he said, "Come on, you can help." And so I got to play dental assistant.
I think you got to do more than just assistant.
In time, he showed me how to anesthetize, showed me how to pull teeth, and then he got busy, and I got to minister with him only an earshot away if I ever saw something that needed his expertise. Well, that's the beauty of ministries, because over the trips, I've participated in tumor removal, a small thoracic surgery. So you just get to do those things that are outside your comfort zone.
When you walk in the Amazon today, you're like, "Scalpel, please." So, Mike, I want to start with a question that I brought up to you the other day, and it's a truth that I think I just don't know that we think about too much, and I don't think that people in your position think about all too much, at least from my perspective. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I know you're part of a big group that does think like that.
We are. And I presume that group is how do business and ministry work together?
Yes. And so recently you went to some place that I would say I wouldn't probably go. And that, which is odd because of what I do day to day and the type of people I'm involved with. But why don't you tell me about where you went recently and why? Now, I want to preface this. I would go if the door was open, I guess, and God wanted our ministry to be there, but he hasn't. And I can tell a story later that would give maybe some context to why I said that. But why don't you talk about it first?
Well, I think we're all challenged with calling. And so what you're talking about is calling, is why would we go one place and not the other? And it's exactly what you said, is that we feel a calling for it. We feel the Lord producing results even before we get there. And so we looked at Sierra Leone exactly the same way. It's an interesting story. I had no desire to go to Sierra Leone just because it's Sierra Leone. I met a man named David Sullivan, who runs the development side of Set Free Ministries.
Who was one of our earlier interviews.
Exactly. And David was talking about the work that he was doing in India. I'm doing work in India as well, but in our lunch conversation, David was talking about well drilling that they were doing in Sierra Leone. And he had mentioned that his group had gotten connected with a medical ministry in Freetown. And I just casually mentioned, "Are you working with Jeffrey Moses?" And David's response was, "How do you know doctors in Sierra Leone?" It goes back to a time where my wife Ann and I ministered to college students in Galveston, Texas. Galveston is home to University of Texas Medical Branch, UT's medical school called UTMB. And in many cases, we ministered to the college students that were in Galveston for medical training. The one way that you reach out to college students is provide them a free meal every week. And so Anne, with the gift of hospitality, and our church, which had a strong student following, developed relationships with many medical students and occupational therapy, physical therapy students as well. One young lady, Nicole, was in an even tighter group of Anne's mentors, mentees. She was the mentor for these young ladies. And Nicole and Jeffrey were dating. Jeffrey was a first-year med student at UTMB, and we got to know them really well. When Jeffrey and Nicole ultimately got married, they did their residency down in Anderson. And so Ann and I had the opportunity to babysit for them while they would go on date night, and we had lost touch, but knew that Jeffrey's father was from Sierra Leone, and so they felt the calling to the mission field and went back to establish their medical practice in Freetown.
So you said Anderson, South Carolina?
Anderson, South Carolina.
Oh, that's not
And
very far.
so this is where, like I said, God is starting to produce results before we're ever involved. We happen to be mentors back when they were in college. We crossed paths again when they were in Anderson and we were in Greenville, South Carolina. And then once again, when David brought up that Set Free Ministries was going to do work and work in conjunction with Jeffrey in Sierra Leone. And so what could I do but go?
And what'd you do?
So the ministry's twofold now. It's what I like to think of as a holistic ministry. Ministers to mind, soul, and body. So on the body side, we do medical clinics. I say we. Jeffrey, I'm not a medical person. I'm just a gopher when I'm there. And so I support the medical team in whatever way they need me. On this recent trip, 2 medical clinics in 2 different villages were established, and just reached out to the people physically to help alleviate any medical issues they were having.
I do want to share my story just real quick. Because I do love what David Sullivan and them at Set Free do, and I've done medical clinics too. I'm not a doctor, not even an EMT, but I've been able to go in and help a doctor with whatever he or she needed. And I do want to ask you in just a second about some stuff in the past related to that, because I think it was you, if I'm not mistaken, some of the strange stories you told me. So the reason I said what I said at the beginning about where you went, which is in West Africa.
That's correct, on the coast of West Africa.
So many years ago, I was at a camp for college students in New Mexico, and I think I'd been a believer maybe 4 months, not very long. And we were at this place. There's 2,000 students there. I say camp. It was not like a rugged youth camp or anything like that. And so at the end, I really sensed God was saying, I want you to go into ministry. And of course, my thought was, if I end up in ministry, I'm going to end up in Africa. And my brain was going not so much about the people, but about my living conditions.
That's right.
I was going to live out in no man's land in a grass hut and eating bugs and things like that. I knew nothing about Africa. Now, I do know there's some very rural parts of Africa. There's no question about that. But there's also some very modern parts as well, depending on what part of the continent you're on. And so I told God, I said, my answer is no, until I can say yes to that. And it took me 4 years to be able to say yes to that. So I could say yes to God. And after now it's been 27 years since that second moment, I still never have set foot in Africa. Not one time. So anyways, that's a rabbit trail.
Maybe
right
soon.
there. Who knows? The opportunities keep coming up and then they fall apart and then I never end up there. Although I would like to go to Northern Africa. I think that's the part I'm more interested in. Mm-hmm. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, you talked about doing medical clinics.
So the other part of that is where Set Free started in Africa, which was drilling wells. It's the area that we were in is more like the part that you talked and feared. Very rural. We were hours off paved road up toward the Guinea border at one point, and so it was very remote. And in that original environment, water was came from streams, which came with all the health concerns that you can envision with that.
You know, you were just describing what it was like where you just went in Sierra Leone. And I want to circle back just a second, just highlight something you said earlier. Is when I made the statement before I described my context, you made the statement, some to the degree of God's designed us for something, like we're all designed for some place. You know, we're not all, I'm going to expand on what you said, that we're not all designed for the same place, you know, because I've met people, I've met missionaries, business people who love those parts of the world, and they hate the city. And I love the city. And, you know, I really believe that God's given us, you know, it's not to say he would never take us to some place that's contrary to what our nature is or what we're more accustomed to. But I do believe that he takes us to places that he's designed us for.
I agree with you that calling is unique in each of us, and it's where we feel comfortable and at home. Not that our environment is comfortable, but that our ministry is comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a question. This is not on my list. You said you were doing the medical clinic. You're not a medical professional, as we know.
I am not.
But you have played a medical professional at times in the past. Not in the United States, so, you know, we're cool and clear on that.
Yeah, no AMA violation.
Yeah, nothing like that. So what kind of experiences have you had in the past?
So this goes back actually to my testimony and salvation. I came to faith on the deck of a riverboat in the middle of the Amazon. A dear friend and high school buddy of mine invited me on a trip to the Amazon basin, again, ministering physically as well as spiritually. I went to work on construction, helping repair and build churches and even residences for people, again, in the jungle. We traveled everywhere, as you do in Brazil, by a riverboat. This was back in the 90s. I came to faith in 1992. But went on several of these trips with an organization called Amazon Outreach that was created about that time. The trips always initiated out of Miami. And typically in the summertime, as many of the short-term missions trips do, we would go for 10 days to 2 weeks. We would fly out of Miami into Manaus. Manaus didn't have any roads to it at that time. Really, the river was the main road. In that, we often took surgical teams, dental teams, and they would come from all over the United States, often from Dallas or Ohio or Northeast. We'd meet in Miami, and the flight left typically at 12:30 at night and would arrive in Manaus and flew every other day. Being summertime in the Midwest, you often had thunderstorms, which would delay or even cancel flights. It just so happened that on this particular trip, our entire dental team came out of Ohio, thunderstorm, and their flight was canceled. Well, the thing you know about international flights is they fly no matter what. And so we got on the flight, left Miami. Well, what we're not going to do is sit in Manaus for days waiting for more of the team to get there because we have to travel sometimes 48 hours upriver by boat in order to reach the area that we were ministering to, the villages. And so in this particular trip, we just didn't have a dental team with us. Well, traveling with a surgeon from Dallas, and it was a particularly slow day at the clinic, and he wasn't feeling challenged, and he said, "Why don't we do some dentistry?" And I wasn't feeling particularly great that day, and so was not running a construction team. And he said, "Come on, you can help." And so I got to play dental assistant for a surgeon out of Dallas doing dentistry in the middle of the jungle.
I think you got to do more than just assistant. But,
Well, in time, he showed me how to anesthetize, showed me how to pull teeth, and then he got busy, and so I got to minister with him only an earshot away if I ever saw something that needed his expertise.
so if you ever go back to dental school, you're already ahead of the curve. You've already got more experience than anyone else in the room.
Well, that's the beauty of ministries, because over the trips, I've participated in tumor removal, a small thoracic surgery. So you just get to do those things that are outside your comfort zone.
Are they outside your comfort zone?
Well, they were at the time. Probably still are a bit more today.
So when you walk in the Amazon today, you're like, scalpel, please.
Not so much. I let the professionals work.
Yeah, until they're bored, and then they put you in there. So I did not know you became a believer on the Amazon.
I did, on the mission field.
That's pretty cool.
I was the classic kid that grew up in church, knew all the stories, but had no relationship with the Lord.
I assume you were out of college and all that?
Yes. I graduated and finished my graduate work in 1985. So, yes, I had been working in business for about 7 years before I took my first trip to the Amazon.
Now, did you already own a business by that time?
No, I was partner in a business. I wasn't the exclusive owner. We had real estate development work that we were doing. At that time, I was living in Raleigh-Durham area, and we were doing residential real estate development.
You have lived all over the map, I think, in the U.S.
Well, yeah, mostly east of the Mississippi, though.
Okay, except for your stint in Texas.
Well, I guess that's true.
Where are you originally from? Or I guess where were you born?
Born in Oklahoma.
Okay.
My father was military and served on a military base out in Cordell, Oklahoma, out in the Panhandle, but grew up in Central Illinois.
So this experience on the Amazon, when you first went and you believed, did that have an impact on how you view business, or did it influence it in any way?
I think it ultimately always does. Of course, our arbiter of truth is always the Bible. And so as someone involved in business and science, and I would always go back to the Bible to see what it said about truth. And so, of course, the Great Commission in Matthew says we're to go and make disciples. That's a command. It's not a suggestion. And so how we do that is more important than our vocation. Our avocation is ministry. Our vocation is what we do to sustain ourselves.
So a lot of Christians, not just business people, but a lot of Christians want to divide or separate the secular from the sacred. They view their jobs as this is who I am, this is what I do, leave everything about ministry out of it. But when I hear about your life, you clearly don't, because I've heard stories of just how you've done things through your business, through relationships in your business. So why not just be the Christian businessman who donates money?
Well, and certainly that's a noble cause as well. Not everyone can go, physical limitations or familiar obligations can prevent people from going. And so giving is another way that God has challenged us and enabled us to participate in his work. No condemnation for someone who gives. God calls us to be givers with cheerful hearts. But at the same time, he causes us to have personal relationships. And for me, there's no better personal relationship than a business relationship that has more than profit at its heart.
So, my life, a lot of my life, kind of adult ministry life, has centered around China. It's not
Right.
not so much anymore, but for a long time it was. And you mentioned going to China. Were there any unique opportunities that came up in your business trips and dealings that allowed you to be a witness or something?
Well, absolutely. So first of all, the Chinese are a gracious people. I have nothing but high regards for the Chinese people. And in many cases, they want to know how they're the same as us, but also how they're different from us. And so I've always shared my faith with them because that's what makes me unique. What makes me different culturally is that we've grown up in a Christian society where the church was often the center of our social network as well as our faith. And so being able to share those opportunities with people, simply praying before a meal, that we acknowledge God as a provider for us, that he is sovereign, he is all powerful. He enables, even the things that we do day in, day out, such as business.
I know you've been to China, you've been to India, you've been to parts of the Middle East.
Yep.
All of those places are, as you said about the Chinese people, have really incredible people who live there. In fact, I was just watching a video this morning from a Chinese person on YouTube about her experience in Iran, just, pre-current conflict back in January, and just how the Iranian people are living. But we also know there's challenges in all those places, especially with local believers. China has them, India we know has them. So have you ever found it, I living in China in the past, I get this question asked a lot, like, are you able to have a Bible? Are you able to say anything about your faith? It's like it's this mindset of everything's just so scary and there's the boogeyman's around every corner. Like, what was your experience in terms of that?
I can't say that I've ever experienced animosity from it. But don't get me wrong, it's God who saves. I don't save anybody. I tell what's going on in my life and what I believe, but God calls. God brings any non-believer to faith. And so I trust in him for that. I share the good news. By and large, it's well received. Whether I'm in Dubai or whether I'm in Israel, the message is the same. Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior.
I'm curious, have you ever, I guess, seen or experienced that it's easier to share when you're abroad versus in the U.S.?
I would say it's similar. In many ways, there's a boldness you have when you're traveling because you wonder if you're ever going to meet that person again, as opposed to the person that you run into every day at Starbucks or the Uber driver. Mm-hmm. And so there may be more boldness when you're overseas.
Because I think in the Middle East, my experience is definitely different than China. China was probably by far the easiest place for me. Yep. But that was, it's been 7 years since I've been there, which still blows my mind. It's been that long. It just feels odd. But, back in 2000, it was almost like, dealing with students, college students, it was like throwing candy to kids. It was like, I had a missionary describe it to me once, at least back then, and I know things have changed a little bit, but it's like a whiteboard when you're sharing the gospel. In the U.S., you've got all this stuff on a whiteboard, and you got to erase, and kind of fill things back in on the whiteboard. But in China, for those students at the time, it was blank, very little of anything on there. And so you got to be the first one in most cases to go up and just talk about everything spiritual with them, because they were taught from very early on that there was no God. I mean, it was integrated into the school system by law for most of the students. But that's my experience. I wasn't really dealing with Muslims at the time or Buddhists. Strangely enough, I didn't even talk to a lot of Buddhists. They were just non-religious, but not in the atheist of a U.S. sense of antagonistic and wanting to debate you all the time.
The experience I had was less about, like you say, erasing the board. It was really sharing my personal, how do I know truth? How Romans tells us that understanding of who God is written on all of our hearts. And so whether we want to acknowledge that cerebrally or not, that's built into us. And so I think that message resonates with all people, regardless of where they're located at, whether it be Central America or a boardroom in New York. That understanding is built into us.
So just going back to an earlier question, just being more specific, when you interact, I don't know how much you interact with Muslims or Hindus specifically, but in terms of those two groups or any groups like that, which tend to be kind of more of a concern for American Christians, like, do you find that they're difficult to talk to?
I don't, because I have business partners in both. One of my long-term business partner and a dear friend is an expat Iranian living in Dubai, and I have the deepest respect for him. And he's a fine gentleman and a wonderful business person. We enjoy our time when we get together. I was supposed to stop and meet with him on the way back from Sierra Leone, but that didn't happen, and so we're looking forward to the next one. Same thing in China or India. I have business partners in Bangalore, and we talk every week. Matter of fact, I shared with them today's conversation with you and shared your podcast with them. This is the CEO of a tech company in Bangalore. It's always an opportunity to share truth.
Hey, maybe we'll get some Bangalore viewers,
That's
random Bangalore viewers.
Maybe so.
So do you have you clearly believe that as you're doing business, you're also living this life of ministry. I mean, some people have a formal plan, but whether it's formal or informal doesn't really matter. But do you have some kind of plan in the back of your mind that you're always wanting to integrate ministry and in your day-to-day life?
Well, and I would say it a little differently. It's not integration. It's ministry is who I am as a believer. At least I hope that is conveyed, and business is just part of what I do. I see it all the way back in Genesis 1, where God's original plan pre-fall was to work and to keep. That's all about business. That's all about stewardship. He first worked and kept the garden. And so then that passed to man to work and to keep. So we're called to be diligent workers, and we're called to be good stewards to what's entrusted to us.
That's a good answer. So now I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
So let's circle back just a second.
Good.
Because when I asked you about your relationship with Muslims and Hindus,
Yeah.
and just how a lot of people view them, early on, when I started going to China, it was ingrained in me by so many people that you got to separate the government, and I would even include government plus radical groups, from the people. Like when you're dealing with Muslims, there's a lot of Muslims who are, yes, they're Muslim, and we can debate Islam and the intricate details of it all we want and what we think it is or isn't. But deep down, the majority of Muslims are people who want to live at peace. They just want to they want to take care of their families. They want to provide for their families.
Same things we do.
Exactly. And Hindus are the same way. Not to say there's not some bad apples in the larger group. But, that was just, and I think that's why it's so easy for me, even when conflicts like the US and Israel and Iran are in right now, to look at the people of those countries and think, okay, there's more to the story than just what the headlines say.
Absolutely.
And there's more to that's the sound bites of certain political commentaries say, or commenters, or whatever they're called. That the people are just people. And as you mentioned earlier, God has created something in us, kind of a bent. We don't even know it's there. Most people don't know it's there, but it's a bent toward trying to find him. And unfortunately, a lot of them are just deceived. And we were all there at one time.
We live in a fallen world. Absolutely.
Even, quote, professing Christians can be there, because my Middle Eastern friends and colleagues have a saying that there are believers and then there are Christians. Every believer is a Christian, but not every Christian is a believer. And one of the teams I work with, one of the couples I work with, part of their ministry is they actually go to Christians in their community to share the gospel with them, hoping that they'll come to Christ.
Well, and I think you're right, is that if there's a separation, it's between cultural Christians, people that have grown up in a Judeo-Christian environment and call themselves Christian, but they're just like I was before salvation. I attended church. I knew what the Bible was. I knew the stories in it. I could barely name any of the books in it, but I had no personal relationship with our Savior. And it wasn't until he impressed upon me on that trip to the Amazon that said, I love you. I want to have a relationship with you, an intimate relationship, not a far-off relationship.
So do you think it's crucial, and I'll use that word, crucial for believers in the secular world, vocation, whether it be owning a business like you or a medical doctor or educator or something like that, to find ways to integrate their faith into what they do?
Well, I do. I think it's absolutely because, we're not businessmen who are Christians. We are Christians. We happen to be involved in business or teaching or whatever our vocation is. And so if that's truly who we are, it should infuse everything we do.
So let me ask you the kind of a same question in a different way. And granted, you own a business, you're the top dog in your company, you get to set the rules. So
I actually am a servant to the rest of them.
So you have a little bit more freedom, I would say, than a lot of people. So some people maybe work for a corporation and they have very stringent rules on, you can't share your faith, you can't wear a cross or a necklace, or you can't display anything. Like, would you have any advice for them when they're struggling with, I want to live this Christian life, but my employer is restricting me?
Well, I think there are several answers to that. Ultimately, find another employer. If you feel that you can't be who you are in that, I would say you're in the wrong environment. I think Billy Sunday said, Billy, when he was preaching to a group of businessmen, he said, Billy, you're rubbing the cat the wrong way. And Billy said, turn the cat around. Go do something different. Be proactive in that. Don't make decisions because of money. God knows what we need. He'll honor that act more than your paycheck.
That's a good point about not following the money
Yeah.
as the primary.
But we know too many people make decisions purely on money. But along with that, there are many fantastic employers out there. Even in our area in Spartanburg here, I think no one does it better than a company called Polydeck. Polydeck is focused on the well-being of their employees, their vendors, their clients, actively promotes the faith, and is a beacon of Jesus in the business community.
If you would encourage believers, just across the board of, when they're looking at their life and their vocation, how would you encourage them to stay faithful and just persevere?
Well, nothing more important than going back to that source of truth we talked about earlier. Spend time in the Bible every day. It's a wealth of well-being for you. As you and I have talked about the series, The House of David. It's uplifting. And the House of David is driven in large part by another member of the group that I participate on the national scale called C12. C stands for CEO. 12 is the administrative number in the Bible. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples. And its focus is how to support CEOs and business owners in living out a ministry-focused lifestyle in today's environment. And so one of the members out of Texas developed the idea of the House of David, and it's one of the best I've seen recently.
I love it. This is one of the few series, I think I told you the other day, when I came across it, it was just the first season. I was on my way to Istanbul and I just downloaded the whole thing and just watched the whole thing all the way there. And I'm one of those guys, I catch up on movies on planes because I have a hard time working on flights. So I'll either sleeping or catching up on movies, but I was just glued to my phone the whole time, just watching that entire series.
It's fantastic. And what we all as believers would love to hear that we're known as a man after God's own heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see that portrayed and then to go back and read David's integrity for Samuel is just wonderful pattern to follow after. Is understand what the Bible says about right and wrong, and consequences go out the window. You just are true to who you are and what God has called you to do. The fear of Christians is first of all, we believe God's sovereign. That means that as much as we like it or dislike it, He is behind whatever government's in place in any country we might visit. Now, that doesn't always mean that our mission is glorified in that. It may be very challenging because of that, but we take faith in that God is still in control and has us right where He wants us.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This was a great conversation with Mike, and I hope you were encouraged by it. I hope you were challenged by it. And I hope you'll think about how it might apply to your life, the things that he said. And while you're at it, I'd encourage you, if you haven't done so already, it's free to do. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Share it with 5 people. Comment. Engage with me, especially if you're on YouTube. And until next time, I would just want to encourage you, as I always do, Get out there as a follower of Jesus, as a disciple of Christ. Get out there and live bold, live courageous, and live Enviado.